This is the journey to one Africa.
Merci, monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. President. I first of all wish to give thanks to Almighty God for having guided our work and for bringing us here together in this beautiful cosmopolitan city of New York. Excellency, Dennis Francis, President of the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Majesty, Secretary General of the United Nations, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Allow me to express my sincere thanks to the host country of the United States of America and to its people, in particular to the authorities and people of the state of New York. I thank them all for the very warm welcome and exemplary hospitality that I and my accompanying delegation have been shown. At the outset, I wish to reiterate my most heartfelt condolences to the people of Morocco and Libya. Today, they are in mourning following natural disasters, the human and material damage of which is incalculable. May God bring comfort to those the families at this time of great suffering. Allow me to convey my hearty congratulations to His Excellency Mr. Dennis Francis, following his successful election to the presidency of the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Mr. President, Burundi assures you of its full cooperation and extends to you every wish for success as you discharge your mandate. I'm also delighted to pay a well-deserved tribute to Mr. Shaba Koroshi, your predecessor, for his sterling work during his term. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the time has come to piece back together a world of peace, a world which can foster progress. We must cultivate trust, mutual understanding, and solidarity. It is for that reason that we hail the choice of theme which guides our discussion today. That theme is rebuilding trust and reigniting global solidarity, accelerating the 2030 Agenda and its sustainable development goals towards peace, prosperity, progress, and sustainability for all. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we meet every year in this hall and in other equally important fora. However, the world nevertheless continues to face grave existential threats. As such, that world is unfortunately growing ever more unstable and vulnerable. Trust and solidarity are values which should characterize relations between our states. However, these values are rendered fragile because we have, so to speak, domesticated them and recreated them in our image to further our own interests. We must liberate these values so that they can be shared values. These values must recover their original meaning which was buried following colonialization and the expansion of other selfish ideologies, which sought to drag least developed countries ever deeper for the benefit of rich nations. In reality, colonization missed its chance because it could have created a solidarity by allowing the meeting of cultures and know-how, and by creating a mutually beneficial partnership instead of a partnership characterized by dependency. Trust and solidarity then lost every trace of their initial meaning, with the effects of neocolonialism. Neocolonialism marked by multifaceted forms of interference in the domestic affairs of developing states, through the unjust remuneration given for commodities and through the heavy demands imposed by the Bretton Woods institutions. There is what was called official development aid a few years ago. It's now come to be termed a partnership for development. That's the term in common parlance today. In any case, terms for this concept abound, but they're all tinged with bad faith. Indeed, terms abound to veil this hypocrisy. At the same time, resources dispersed with a view to generating economic returns that could foster economic recovery are themselves shrinking. Today, Mr. President, it is important to move beyond the needs and interests of states. These often vary greatly and are often difficult to reconcile. International solidarity must guarantee that all countries are able to interact on a level playing field. International solidarity that we wish to see does not seek to homogenize, rather it seeks to stand as a bridge between differences and even between radically opposing viewpoints. It seeks to allow respectful and mutually beneficial relations to flower. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, trust and solidarity should be the cornerstone on which thriving international relations can develop, international relations free of inequality and conflict. This is, incidentally, the goal that Burundi is striving to achieve, first and foremost at a national level. We're seeking to cultivate and strengthen this ideal within our people. As such, after years of instability, the process of truth and reconciliation launched in Burundi is today bearing a bounty of fruit because the people of Burundi are now energized in pursuit of a common ideal as they seek to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. In this connection, we call upon friendly countries and partners to support the action of Burundi's government, and we heartily encourage foreign investment. However, the sad truth is that ODA, which should support the efforts of the government as it seeks to guarantee the well-being of its citizens, has little by little faded away to instead be channeled towards non-state actors which serve the geopolitical and economic interests of certain so-called donor states. These interests are unspoken and clandestine. Evidently, international solidarity should encourage developed nations to make tangible contributions to the socio-economic development of LDCs. A Kirundi proverb, Nwetanguro Muburu, means prosperity can only last if it is shared. That proverb reminds us that investing in the prosperity of a neighbor is to indisputably guarantee and shore up one's own sustainability and progress. This, Mr. President, reminds us of the urgent need to rethink and strengthen our global partnership. That, in our view, involves ensuring debt relief, a substantial increase in resources devoted to the fight against poverty. It involves strengthening South-South cooperation, the sharing of technologies and innovation, and it involves broadening commercial agreements. Ladies and gentlemen, in spite of all of the challenges above, Burundi remains determined, and indeed we trust that this assembly will work to rebuild trust in my country. We believe that it will champion a process by which international solidarity is revived. The government and people of Burundi have a genuine and staunch determination to maximize the dividends of peace and to protect our hard-won reconciliation. In view of that goal, our warhorse is the promotion of good governance and the fight against all forms of injustice. Indeed, we are engaged in a tireless struggle to ensure the proper management of public affairs, and thanks to this determined struggle, Burundi has made significant progress in terms of democracy, good governance, and improving its business climate. Consequently, we have become a safe place for investment and a range of economic activities. Moreover, significant efforts are being made in productive sectors which create mass employment and which drive growth. Against this backdrop, my government is striving to particularly stimulate the agricultural sector. That sector employs vast swathes of Burundi's population. Consequently, In light of that goal, we have taken the decision to finance our agricultural sector through our national program of agricultural subsidies. That program subsidizes fertilizers, selected seed species, and plant health products. We're also focusing on development of research in the agricultural sector, as well as the mechanization of it and the use of advanced technologies to ensure agro-food processing and to shore up rural infrastructure. To do all of the above, a national pact for agriculture has been established, and it has put in place 2 agricultural hubs built around 4 lucrative subsectors. That was done very quickly, and we now also have a special agricultural industrial zone. In all of the above endeavours, we wish to involve Burundian economic operators and foreign investors. To implement this plan, we have a new investment code and have made regulatory adjustments which make our environment a very attractive one. Given the fact that we have a climate which favours year-round agriculture, given the fact that we have a wealth of labour available, and given the exceptional fertility of our soil, Burundi is the best possible destination for anyone wishing to invest in the agricultural sector. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in other sectors elsewhere, my government has just updated its mining code to create an investment-friendly environment within this sector. The abundant mineral wealth of our country remains underexploited. My government's goal is to bring about economic recovery by exploiting our natural resources. The goal is to make Burundi an emerging country by 2040 and a developed country in 2060. To succeed in this endeavour, we are giving pride of place to young people and women. They are the real drivers of socio-economic development because of the way they promote entrepreneurship, innovation, and because of their spirit of creativity. Indeed, we are particularly backing young people because there is no weapon more effective than young people in the fight against poverty and in conflict prevention. As an African Union champion for the Youth, Peace and Security agenda, I wish to take this opportunity to call for a better inclusion of and the more effective participation of young people in the development agendas of our respective states. In this regard, I welcome the General Assembly's decision to create a United Nations Youth Office. I congratulate the Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who proposed this flagship initiative in his report, Our Common Agenda. This is exactly how intergenerational trust and solidarity will serve as genuine sources of peace and security for sustainable development. As a staunch advocate of non-discrimination where women and young people are concerned, the government of my country has chosen to use the bounty of talent and knowledge to promote their economic empowerment. In order to expedite the implementation of Agenda 2030, education has been free in Burundi since 2005, and that has allowed Burundian girls to access quality education and as such to prepare for an active participation in national life. For 2 decades now, Burundi has improved the ratio of men to women in the political sphere. We have set a quota of 30% for women in the National Assembly and the Senate. Today, women hold approximately 50% of seats in the parliament, in the government, and in the most senior positions. In order to leave no one behind, as it ushers in socio-economic development, the government of Burundi is sparing no effort to promote the empowerment and emancipation of all sectors of its population. With this in mind, the Batwa community, who has long time fallen foul of discrimination, today benefits from an affirmative action policy, which is implemented in education, healthcare, and housing systems. There is free healthcare for children and pregnant women, and that has contributed to improving the living conditions of women in general and of Batwa families in particular. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I have taken my time to describe to you the situation of my country, to show to you that Burundi is well and truly back on track, and that means we have our rightful place within the concert of nations. We've earned it. Mine is a country that has overcome difficult situations in its history, but we have all the assets we need to go very far indeed in terms of development. Today, Burundi is something of a burden for development partners, but tomorrow the situation could change if we were to obtain sizable seed capital to once and for all leave the LDC category. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we want to see a better world, but that project is being hampered by a multitude of conflicts that we need to address in a united fashion and in a spirit of brotherhood. Countries in difficulty need us all. It is therefore in a spirit of solidarity that within the East African community that I chair, we've launched a series of initiatives in order to restore peace and security in the east of the DRC. Burundi also participates in peacekeeping operations and in the fight against terrorism in the CAR and in Somalia. That is testament to the desire harbored by the Burundian people to contribute to the advent of a better world built on foundations of solidarity. I reiterate the need for international solidarity to be shown in order to bring peace to the east of the DRC. At the same time, Burundi reaffirms its tireless support for the Luanda and Nairobi peace processes, as well as for the Peace, Security and Cooperation Framework Agreement for the DRC and the region. The regional oversight mechanism of that agreement is chaired by Burundi. In this connection, I'd like to say the following. Whilst we do insist on the need to rebuild trust between states, we must together condemn certain spoilers who fan the flames of conflicts and devote themselves to sowing destabilization in other states. Let us call a spade a spade. The political and security-related instability in countries of the South, particularly in Africa, is born of the desire of powers who wish to control the domestic policies of developing nations. Africa, in particular, has become the arena for geopolitical conflicts playing out between major powers, and we continue as such to fall behind in terms of economic development. That economic deficit becomes the cause of internal conflicts, which then plunge our countries into abject poverty. We are battling against external interference in domestic affairs. At the same time, we also condemn the re-emergence of anti-constitutional changes to systems of government, which are a serious erosion of democratic gains seen over the last several years in Africa and throughout the world. Constitutional order and the rule of law must prevail above all. My country reiterates its staunch commitment to the peaceful resolution of conflicts through dialogue, cooperation, joint work and negotiation. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in general terms, security and stability throughout the world seem to be yielding to war, terrorism and violent extremism, as well as crime and violence in its myriad forms. In this regard, at a time when the African Transition Mission in Somalia, ATMIS, is preparing to withdraw in the coming months, once it has completed its successful mandate, I wish to here pay tribute to the professionalism and self-sacrifice of troops working for peace in Somalia, including the Burundian troops. I'd like to also take this opportunity to draw the international community's attention to the consequences of the hasty closure of this mission. That hasty closure risks providing an opportunity to terrorist groups to grow stronger and regroup. Mr. President, turning now to the climate crisis, I welcome the commitments already entered into by states during various international climate negotiations, commitments to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to finance the protection of the environment, climate resilience, and the green transition of the least polluting nations. We want to see these commitments followed up by tangible action, because the failure to mobilize $100 billion annually since 2020, a commitment made in the Paris Agreement, and that was a commitment that was to continue annually until 2025, but the failure of that to materialize imperils the very existence of future generations. We believe that COP28, which will be held this year in Dubai, will provide an excellent opportunity to turn words into actions. Turning now to the increase in migratory flows, we are all aware that the extent of these migratory flows are threats to peace and security. Indeed, this movement is of concern to rich countries, is the consequence of poverty, because these migrants are seeking a better life, and as such they leave poor areas to earn a living in more affluent nations. The reducing migration involves inevitably adopting appropriate cooperation-based measures which allow young people better opportunities to find opportunities for decent work, employment, independent employment, or entrepreneurship. This should be done namely through the implementation of programs which seek to achieve the SDGs and ensure they are achieved on a national level. We are now called upon to focus our efforts on establishing a global partnership which fights poverty in all its forms. However, as we await a lasting solution to poverty, countries of transit and destination must understand our situation and provide dignified and humane assistance to migrants, and must guarantee them their fundamental rights. The respect of human rights is a matter on which we all agree. These rights must be universal and indivisible for all. My country is always against discrimination, as well as against the instrumentalization of human rights and the double standards used in their application. We condemn states who, under the pretext of protecting human rights, use human rights as fodder to interfere in the domestic affairs of states. Moreover, we stand against politically motivated resolutions which target specific states, and we are against the implementation of mechanisms which strangle the states targeted and stifle them without any constructive dialogue taking place. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me, before I conclude, to reaffirm our commitment to the democratization of the multilateral system. This includes the reform of the United Nations Security Council as well as of the international financial system to make both more representative, just and inclusive, and able to more effectively address the challenges emerging in the world today. International law recognizes the principle of the sovereign equality of all states. Accordingly, these states must enjoy the same rights and the same international duties, including in the sensitive domains of the maintenance of international peace and security. I wish to thank the member states of the Security Council, some of which understand the desire long expressed by Africa. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, as we mark this International Day of Peace, I wish to close my address by paying a fervent tribute to our brave peacekeepers, wherever they are in the world, because they defend a universal cause which transcends all of our differences. For peace, for the sake of peace, let us rebuild trust and reignite international solidarity. May God bless you. Thank you for your kind attention.